Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we've got 5 must-add players for Week 7 fantasy football action. Impressive performances here in Week 6, as well as some nice bodies of work throughout the beginning of this season, have given me some increased trust in these players, and going forward, I think that there's some salvageable lineup value for us moving forward the rest of this season. So we're not going to waste too much time before jumping into today's video. Give it a like, but let's hit that intro and get straight into today's episode. Alrighty, here we go. So as always, if you're new around here, you should click that subscribe button as well, in addition to giving today's video a thumbs up, as we are still approaching and making our way towards that 3,000 subscriber marker, and we would love to have you become a part of the channel and support the SFS community. But AJ Green here is my first must-add player. Now, these aren't in any particular order. If you've got questions about your individual teams, drop those in the comment section below. I'm happy to help you out, tell you which player best suits your lineup, or whatever the case may be. I'll be popping in and out as much as I can throughout the week to help you guys with that. But AJ Green's had himself a little bit of a career resurgence here with the Cardinals in 2021. Green's only rostered in 33% of ESPN leagues right now, and this is a player who is kind of solidifying himself into the weekly wide receiver 2 role for this Arizona football team. DeAndre Hopkins is being targeted at a much lower clip than we saw him in year 1 with Kyler Murray in this Cardinals offense, and that's kind of opening the door for AJ Green and others to step up and produce on a week-to-week basis. And all around, that's probably better for the Cardinals as a football team. It kind of stinks for DeAndre Hopkins owners out there. He only had 3 catches this week. But AJ Green has stepped up, and he has filled the slack and really filled any void that would have been left by the missing targets from DeAndre Hopkins' workload. 5 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown in Week 6 for Green against the Browns. He has 6 targets in every single week this season, except Week 5, which compared to Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk, the other 2 receivers who have been productive in stretches for this team this season, that's not something that they can hold themselves here to. So another impressive marker is that Green has 11.5 or more fantasy points in half PPR scoring in 4 out of the 6 weeks so far this season. So you've got some consistent target share, production, and actual point outputs for Green here through the first third of the year. So that's something I like to see. Makes him appear as a more dependable flex option here as we continue on in the year. Tim Patrick, same story here. Another very consistent, just trustworthy flex play. Now, Jerry Jeudy's going to be making his way back into the lineup here. And once he gets back involved with this team, he's designated to return from the injury reserve. So once that occurred just a couple days ago, he now has 21 days to get back into this offense and get back out there on the field. Obviously, once he hits the field, that's going to have a ding on Tim Patrick's production value, and Tim Patrick has stepped up very nicely and filled the wide receiver 2 void in this Broncos offense. But Tim Patrick has 10.5 or more fantasy points in 5 out of the 6 weeks to this point in the season, excuse me. That is great consistency and great production. There's not too much ceiling value here at all, but what you can get is a consistent floor. And sometimes when you're looking at 1 or 2 flex leagues, that's all you're looking for. You just want a player you can rely upon, because obviously that's probably the weakest point in your lineup, and you just want somebody that can step up to the plate and you can know is trustworthy in that group. So again, when you're getting those numbers on 5 out of the 6 weeks to this point in the season, for a player who's only rostered in 40% of leagues, this is a steal that probably a lot of you out there, obviously over half of you, should be able to take advantage of. Unfortunately, Tim Patrick's been scooped up in all the leagues I've been playing in, but Tim should be out there and accessible for a lot of fantasy managers out there. Rashod Bateman, still time. This might be the highest upside play of anyone on the board for me in these 5 players this week. Rashod Bateman's got the potential to be a really sneaky rookie player that comes out here and produces really, really great stats. I have just raved about him in the offseason and the pre-draft process for the Ravens this year, obviously trying to project which team would inevitably pick him. Falls to the Ravens, gets injured in the offseason during the summer, and we haven't seen him on the field yet until Week 6 here, where he tied Mark Andrews for the team lead in targets. Now, it was only 6. It's not like he's walking out here and Game 1 has 10, 11 targets. But when you're still tied for the team lead, That's significant in of itself. He didn't produce all that much. The stats were nothing to behold here, but this is a really, really solid all-around player. Very refined route running. Reminds me of a very young Devontae Adams. He might not break onto the scene and break out immediately, but if you've got a deep bench, he's been an IR stash for a lot of teams out there. If you can just afford to have him stick around and wait for his player maturation process to occur and to ultimately peak at some point this year, you can get some really nice return on just simply having him waiting around on the bench and, again, just growing and developing. He's going to have some nice weeks here. Hollywood Brown is still probably the one in the offense for the time being. He just had a down week here, despite the fact that the Chargers got absolutely stomped by Baltimore in Week 6. But Rashod Bateman is a player you want on your team. This is, again, one of the more under the radar pickups this week. But if you've got room on your roster for some high upside projection later on this season, this is a player that could potentially be a difference maker, and the upside that he could hit could give you some league-winning value if he is able to hit the heights that I think that he could potentially reach here because of how solid of a route runner he is, because of how he separates, how he already understands how to beat certain coverages and get away from the defense. This is a very, very good player, and with Lamar Jackson's progressions as a passer this season, this could potentially be a gold mine for a lot of fantasy managers out there. J.D. McKissic. This is another sneaky one here. If you're needy at the running back position, go get J.D. McKissic. Antonio Gibson's shin issue was something I was really, really skeptical about in Week 5 when we first learned about it, the stress fracture that he has in that shin. And then he puts up really nice numbers, multiple scores, puts up a really solid fantasy stat line, and then that shin really bugs him here in Week 6, and he has to leave the contest on multiple occasions, and J.D. McKissic comes in here and commands that load. Now, we're probably going to see more Jarrett Patterson in the true running game, but McKissic's value as a pass catcher is quite underrated in PPR formats. He's been doing work, man. He had 8 carries for 45 yards on the ground, and then he picked up another 8 receptions for 65 yards. You're talking about a player who could potentially start to sneak into a similar role as a Cordero Patterson in Atlanta. Now, these are two very, very different players, but in the sense that JD is going to get a handful of carries every week, just like Cordero gets his fair share of touches with the Falcons, but where the real value at here is what Cordero does as a pass catcher, and here, similarly, what JD is going to do as a pass catcher in this offense. He's already been eating into Antonio Gibson's receiving work share this season to this point. Going forward, if Gibson continues to be nagged by this injury, if he even misses time due to the stress fracture in his shin, McKissic could become a player who, as a bench stash, someone who I luckily already have a couple of shares of, just kind of hanging out on the bench, he could turn into a very quality flex play on a week-to-week basis, again, in those PPR formats because of the value he presents as a pass catcher. And then T.Y. Hilton here. Now, of the 5 names this week, T.Y. might be the least priority for me because I have the least amount of trust in his overall health to be a constant and something that's a steady force in his fantasy outlook on a week-to-week basis. But the veteran savvy, the ability to produce is still there. 4 targets, 4 receptions, 80 yards in his season opener. Obviously, he's been out with a neck injury to this point in the year. Apparently, he actually contemplated retirement, which was something I heard on the broadcast today that I wasn't made aware of in the offseason. But T.Y. Hilton came out, looked like his same old self, the Texans killer. He comes out here and seems like he always finds a deep ball. He had a 52-yard catch against them. They just can't seem to hang with T.Y. Hilton deep no matter what team, what year it is. T.Y. Hilton by far has his best production against Houston. But man, he ended up having some issues with his quad, banged up, had to leave the game. We'll see how that leaves his status for Week 7 here. But going forward with a big arm quarterback like Carson Wentz, he likes T.Y. Hilton and he likes Paris Campbell, who are both very injury-prone deep threat wide receivers, because he can use that big arm strength to target them downfield and find some big connections with them. So if you need some extra depth at the wide receiver position, potentially a high upside play, there's not too much of a floor value here because if T.Y. doesn't hit one of those deeper routes, he's probably not going to give you the return you're looking for. But still a very worthwhile player to at least consider for your lineup if you're looking, again, for some more depth at that receiver position. Alrighty, those were my 5 waiver wire pickups for Week 7 fantasy football action. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to click that subscribe button. Again, we're trying to make the push for 3K subs here, so any support with that would be awesome as we're trying to continuously grow this community and make it one of the most interactive out there in the fantasy football market. Also, you guys, drop down in the comment section below. Let me know your questions for this week. I'm happy to help you guys out however I can and be a tool and a resource for you to be fantasy champions this season. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode. Go check out some of the other videos I posted today, and we'll continue to post throughout the week, and I'll see you guys there. Peace out.